Steve's parents had always dreamed that he would become a musician. Everyone in their family were musicians, and it was just naturally assumed that Steve would follow the same well-trodden path. From an early age, he had absolutely no free time. After regular school, he would rush to music school and from there, straight to a tutor. If anyone had asked the boy, even in the middle of the night, what he hated most in the world, he would have immediately answered. Of course, neither his mom nor his dad, let alone his grandmother, knew about this. If they had, they probably would have had a heart attack on the spot, so Steve kept silent. But only for a while. In 8th grade, by then his bookshelf was already sagging under the weight of awards and diplomas. A new girl joined their class. Even years later, Steve clearly remembered how his heart stopped and then started beating again, but in a totally different rhythm. She was beautiful, like an angel, and Steve instantly understood. He didn't stand a chance. Skinny, pale, always holding some musical instrument. It was depressing. But Steve wasn't the kind of guy who gave up easily. For a week, he observed the girl. Her name, by the way, was Angela. And then he finally worked up the nerve to approach her. "Hi," he said. She looked at him with big, surprised eyes. "Hi, can I walk you home?" Angela laughed, looked him up and down and replied, "No thanks. If the wind carries you off, I'll have to explain it. And if we get attacked by bullies, I'll be the one saving you." The whole class burst out laughing. At home he was met by his grandmother. "What happened? Why aren't you at music school? And what's with the disheveled look?" Steve threw his violin across the room onto the couch and yelled, "Because I hate your music school. I hate music and I'm not doing it anymore." His grandmother clutched her heart, and Steve ran to his room and locked the door. That day, something shifted inside him. He flat out refused to play or study music anymore. His grandmother drank valerian drops, his mum cried, and his dad stayed meaningfully silent. He understood his son. He had once gone through something similar. To be honest, even now, he'd rather go fishing with the guys and drink a beer than deal with all this. Eventually, after his mum and grandmother even dragged him to a psychologist, Steve won the right to choose his own path. He joined a swim team and started living a completely different lifestyle. His mum cried again. His grandmother kept drinking valerian, and he often came home with a bloody nose. He never went near music again. When the time came to choose a college, the women in the family hesitantly suggested musical or cultural studies. But Steve declared he was going into law enforcement. His grandmother had to be taken away by ambulance. Now his mum was the one drinking valerian. He didn't pass the physical exam for the police academy, so, gritting his teeth, he applied to medical school instead. It seemed like the women finally relaxed a bit. Being a doctor is a respectable path after all. But only until they found out what specialty Steve had chosen. He wanted to be a forensic pathologist. Not just any, but one who works with criminal investigations. "Dr. Stephen Olikovich, how's it going?" Steve looked up at the man who entered his office and took a sip of tea. Michael wasn't just a major in the force, he was also Steve's close friend. "Seriously, Michael? Since when do you care about formalities? It's not like the dead are gonna tattle on you for being too casual," Steve smirked. Michael chuckled, sat down and stared at Steve. "I still don't get how you can eat in here." Steve shrugged. "What's the problem? Where else am I supposed to eat? Run outside with my lunch? You want some?" Michael swallowed hard and shook his head. "No thanks, I'm good." Steve pushed some papers across the table. "Here's your report." "You didn't just come by for a chat, did you?" Michael quickly skimmed through the pages, then finally smiled. "Thanks, Steve. Just as I expected. Now I can slow down and actually ask how you are." Steve laughed. "You're so transactional, man. I don't even want to imagine how you'd talk to me if the report wasn't what you wanted. I'm fine. Not married yet. My parents are doing okay too." "Why not married?" Michael asked. "Last I heard, you left the party with the most gorgeous girl there." "Yeah, well, the second they find out what I do, they vanish. Even the ones who 5 minutes earlier were ready to marry me on the spot. You patch things up with your wife? Michael sighed. Nope. She took Vanya and went to her mom's. No talk helps. Her mum just makes it worse. Keeps saying, I'll get shot and she'll be left alone. Steve rinsed his mug. That's a messed up lady. If your wife leaves you, files for divorce, she'll be stuck alone with a kid. Michael looked at his friend pleadingly. Steve, can you talk to her? She's totally lost it, won't listen to me at all. It's been a nightmare of a week. Steve looked closely at his friend. You don't look so good. Something else going on? Michael shifted in his seat. Honestly, I've been seriously thinking about quitting the force. Steve raised his eyebrows in surprise. He knew perfectly well that for Michael, service and honor were more than just empty words. Now that's something I want to hear more about. You remember I told you our boss got replaced? They sent us a real tyrant. Can't even describe him without swearing. Steve had heard the department head had changed, but hadn't seen the guy yet. I've got a bad feeling about it. Something's off. And the way he parties with his buddies, everyone's talking. Strange no one started an internal investigation yet. Probably has a powerful friend somewhere. I'm just hoping he doesn't get to me anytime soon. Must be nice, Steve said, sitting in this basement while nobody gives a damn about you. Suddenly, a loud buzzer echoed through the office. Well, speak of the devil, Michael muttered. They brought someone in. He said a quick goodbye, mentioning their weekend plans to go talk to Kelly, and left in a hurry. Steve headed upstairs. He immediately recognized the man in uniform as the infamous new superior everyone hated. The guy looked disheveled, reeked of alcohol, and was yelling at the top of his lungs. Why the hell am I waiting? Where is everyone? Please lower your voice, Steve said calmly. This isn't the place to shout or rush. The lieutenant colonel shot him a furious look, but at least toned it down. The girl had a weak heart, expected death. I need the autopsy report as soon as possible. Nothing else to look for. Her body needs to be released to her family tonight. I'll handle it all. Was she someone you knew? Steve asked. More like someone my friends knew, the man replied, avoiding eye contact. Just do as I said. Understood? Understood. Steve nodded. Crystal clear. Good. I'll come by this evening. As soon as the man left, Steve pulled back the sheet and froze. The young woman looked alive. Sometimes the dead retained a peaceful appearance, but the signs of death were always there. Not this time. She looked like she was simply asleep, and she was beautiful. He sighed. The young and beautiful girl, while the nasty ones somehow stay. Giving the usual instructions to his assistant, Steve began preparing for the autopsy. For him, once he held the scalpel, it was all about the job, a kind of quest, to find the truth. This time, though, the truth supposedly didn't need finding. Still, Steve wasn't the kind to take anyone's word for it. His profession didn't allow for that. He made a tiny incision, barely a centimeter, then immediately recoiled. Her skin twitched. He leaned in closer. Were those lips breathing, or was it his imagination? He grabbed a stethoscope and listened. Nothing. He moved to the right side. There it was. A faint heartbeat on the right side. An extremely rare condition. But how could she have ended up here? Something was off. Very off. The lieutenant colonel's urgency suddenly made sense. Steve picked up the phone. Michael, I need your help, urgently, and it has to be completely off the radar. He gave a brief rundown and hung up. 15 minutes later, Michael showed up at the door with a woman carrying a medical kit. Show me, she said. Anna examined the woman, then quickly opened her case and injected something. Check for a puncture mark while I try to wake her. Steve and Michael got to work. They found the mark behind her knee. Very well hidden. 15 minutes later, the girl moaned. Anna looked up. She needs IVs and monitoring. It's better to treat her at home for safety. Is that possible? Michael asked. Her body seems strong. She doesn't drink or smoke, I'd guess, Anna replied. But still, Strange she ended up in that company. Steve took off his lab coat. Let's take her to my place. My shift ends in half an hour. My replacement usually comes early. We just need to get her out before he arrives. They made it just in time. Steve shouted to his colleague that he was running late but would call later, and they sped off. At Steve's apartment, while Anna set up the IV, Michael asked, "So what now? You know they'll start asking questions by evening." "Then by evening," Steve said, "you talk to internal affairs." Michael shook his head. "Easier said than done, but I'll try." 2 hours later, the girl opened her eyes. She looked around in confusion and finally focused on Steve. "Who are you?" she asked. "And who am I?" She looked completely lost. "I'm Nastya," she whispered. "But where are those?" The doorbell rang. Steve rushed to answer. It was Michael with two serious-looking men. "Perfect timing," Anna said quietly. "She's awake. Ask only the essentials. She'll fall asleep again in 20 minutes. They learned that she worked for a cleaning company. Her job had been to clean a private home, one where the lieutenant colonel and his friends were partying. The man took a liking to her. When she firmly rejected him, he knocked her out and injected something, saying she'd be more cooperative now. Apparently, he miscalculated the dose, or perhaps didn't know she had a rare heart condition. This was the body's natural reaction overall. Everyone was convinced she was dead. Her heartbeat couldn't be heard. No one realized it was on the other side. In their drunken state, it didn't even occur to them. What he needed was an official conclusion. Cardiac arrest. That's what he ordered Steve to arrange. By the evening, Nastya had fully come to her senses. Steve had already explained to her the circumstances under which they met. The girl was terrified, crushed, and begged to call her mother. The lieutenant colonel was taken straight from the morgue. He came for the body, probably planning to bury it as unidentified, or maybe he had other reasons. Anyway, 2 months later, Michael was running the department. They managed to convince Alla to come back. Not immediately, of course, but Nasya really helped. She quietly said, "You can't imagine. If it weren't for Steve and your husband, I wouldn't be alive today. Oh, come on, sweetheart, my hero. Grab your bags, let's go home." And 3 months later, the forensic pathologist got married. Yes, he found a woman who didn't care at all about his profession. Not just didn't care, she treated it with reverence. She said that only a true professional could have saved her life. His mother immediately felt relieved. Thank God! At least he found himself a decent wife, not some woman in pants running around waving a gun. She never found out the details of how Steve and Nastya met. Oh, and Nastya turned out to be a violinist. At her own wedding for the first time in years, Steve picked up his violin again. Together they played a sad, romantic melody that brought every guest to tears. If you like this story, please support me with a thumbs up. It might be a small gesture for you, but it means a lot to me. Thank you.